And so we reach the last month of 2021. Is there any festive cheer in the month of December? There's been too much excitement and too much misery this year. The government was hit by scandal, of course, over whether it obeyed COVID rules and the Christmas party at Downing Street. The new Omicron, decide what you want to call it, variant, brought about Plan B the government has gone for. Restrictions are back. 2021 was the year I thought we were supposed to escape to freedom. Freedom Day originally, way back in June, hours ago on this show. And here we are again. And we'll have to see whether or not Christmas is ruined. We'll take it from there. There's not much comfort and joy in this particular month. Not much comfort and joy this year, as you've seen from so many of our guest numbers. Some wild optimists out there, I agree, but, not a great deal to be cheerful about. For this look back at December, just towards the end of December, I'm delighted to be joined by two of the IEA home team. My Senior Policy Advisor, Sam Collins. How the devil are you, Mr. Collins?
Very well, thank you very much for having me on.
And our Head of Cultural Affairs, Marce Glendening. Glenda, how's it going?
It's going very well. I'm fighting fit.
Well, OK, so looks like this could be an optimistic end to matters. So, standout moment of December, new restrictions. Plan B is coming in. Just when you thought it was safe to look back at the calendar, suddenly you can't look back at the calendar. You can't actually just say Freedom Day's arrived and it's all clear from there. Sam, what do we make of this? This is just, this is deja vu all over again. This is Groundhog Day squared.
No, there endeth the optimism. I'm almost surprised that the government managed to last, I think it was something like 143 days between Freedom Day and then the announcement that they were reimposing restrictions.
You had 143 days of freedom. What do you want, peasant?
And glorious days they were too. Well, I suppose one shouldn't be too, shouldn't be too greedy. But as anybody could have expected, as the IEA Senior Fellow Julian Jessup actually did suggest, the economic results of new restrictions have been pretty tough on a lot of businesses that have been struggling already. £4 billion a month is what Julian's estimate was on the economic effects. The government has said that they're going to renew the restrictions again, probably in early January. We'll see if we can hold them to that, or if they have
we can hold them to that, indeed.
Or if they can if they're going to have a festive hangover. But hopefully we will not have them run through till March, because that could cost £18 billion to the economy.
Glenda, whenever I bump into people around Westminster, especially if they happen to be a Conservative Member of Parliament, they say, "Mark, how are you?" I say, "Well, I'm not doing too badly. I'm slowly adapting to living in a socialist dystopian state." That's what's happening, isn't it? We're all slowly adapting to living in a socialist dystopian state after the last 12 months. Not much festive cheer at the end of this show, sorry. Ending on a downbeat note.
Yes, indeed. And of course, we see this sinister kind of collectivism, maybe of a sort of, it's not necessarily socialist per se, and with regard to the culture war, I think something else is going on there, which I would argue is more akin to an updated form of fascism, a sort of third way authoritarianism. But we're seeing the momentum this movement has. Earlier this month, of course, there was the Rob Liddle fiasco at Durham University, and Rod, who I think is a great campaigner for political liberty, is fast becoming our equivalent of Galileo. Because there was a mass walkout.
Well, let me just talk us through what happened here, because Mark, for our viewers, you're our Head of Cultural Affairs here, by which we mean the kind of freedom in sectors that are kind of non-economic. The IEA obviously usually focuses on economic matters, but without freedom of speech and freedom of exchange, it's pretty hard for freedom of exchange of ideas, pretty hard for free markets to actually operate. So Rob Liddle, I think, will be known to most of our viewers and listeners, but controversial, outspoken social democrat, actually.
Long-standing member of the Labour Party until recently.
Until recently, where he's joined the Social Democratic Party. Yeah. What did he do? Who did he cause offence to? And why is he right?
Well, the interesting point is that most of the people who walked out
No, but
of
what
his
was it?
lecture...
What was it?
Well, he was giving a lecture that Professor Tim Luckhurst had invited him to give.
Right, on what was he talking about?
On tolerance, on freedom of speech.
This is going to become deeply ironic by the next sentence, I
Of
think.
course,
Right.
yeah. And most of the people who stormed out of the meeting in High Dudgeon did so before he'd even started speaking, which kind of proved his point, but then some more.
They turned up, presumably, only in order to walk out. That's not
absolutely
they
right,
opened with
yeah.
a particularly crude joke or something. Right.
Yeah, but hilariously, one of the grounds that they decided to do this was because they said he represents classist views. Now, if anybody knows Rod, he's a rather earthy, son of Teesside. Yeah. But in fact, what they meant by that was that he'd made some anti-middle class jokes.
Right.
And of course, the sort of pastiche.
I thought that was his profession.
Well, quite.
That's how he,
as he said, he's been doing it for 40
money.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the sort of pastiche Maoists of Durham University, who are all, I mean, virtually all of them highly middle class, are now taking exception. The new left is taking exception to people making jokes about the middle class.
Mark, you've got to fill in this story for me.
Yeah.
So Rod turns up to give a lecture on tolerance and freedom, invited by this chap called Professor Tim Luckhurst.
Yeah.
There's a number of people in the auditorium or the hall or whatever.
Yeah, hundreds. Yeah.
Hundreds, and some walk out.
Yes.
Why should I be scandalised?
Well, no, because then the story continues.
Oh, right.
So the student union are now waging a campaign to force Luckhurst to resign. And then there was a hilarious film of his wife screaming, "Arse, arse, arse," at the students who were surrounding her husband and herself at the end of the meeting.
Right.
There were people waiting for... the new Galileo, Rob Liddle, as he was leaving. But the interesting point for me of all this, I mean, this is sort of happens every week now, virtually on our campuses, was that the grounds on which the student union are demanding that Luckhurst resign is that he violated the safety of the students of Durham by inviting a speaker who would say the sort of things that Rod says. So this redefinition of safety is so extraordinary that it is going to render all political liberty impossible if, in fact, this gains traction.
Right, okay, well, the extraordinary state of affairs. What else has happened in the cultural affairs freedom sphere as well? Give us some more festive cheer about our freedom of speech dying a death over the course of 2021.
Well, this is quite topical, because a very sort of Christmassy figure for me is William Hogarth, our greatest satirist, equal opportunities mocker of, those with power in 18th century Britain. Great liberal, broadly liberal figure. And there's an exhibition which has recently opened at the Tate. But the Tate have decided to put trigger warnings next to every one of the 60 exhibits and have invited various people to critique Hogarth from a sort of critical race theory position. And so this, to me, epitomizes the irrationality of the new modern left, whereby they insanely extrapolate from particular incidents or indeed works of art broad-ranging conclusions to sustain their assertion that structures of power which cannot be seen or empirically verified actually exist. So, for example, one of the critiques is that Hogarth, in a self-portrait, is sitting on a chair, the timber of which must have come from the British colonies and therefore was linked to slavery, because there's no link between Hogarth and slavery. There's another picture.
Other than via the chair.
Other than via the chair.
I'm getting a bit worried about the upholstery here at the IEA. I didn't check it before seeing it.
It doesn't look like an 18th century chair made from a particular type of timber, but I may be
right.
wrong. I'm not an expert.
We're a bit more Poundland here. More Poundland.
Yeah, I think there's a bit more IKEA, isn't it? But, and so, it just goes on and on. I mean, let me read you a quote which I think really epitomizes the madness all of this, but also, I think, interestingly, the profoundly anti-Enlightenment values that virtually every major institution in this country, including the Tate, now subscribes to. So talking of the period in which Hogarth was producing his cartoons and works of art, they say, this was an age of intellectual experimentation and innovation, but also materialism, moral uneasiness, and hypocrisy.
Okay, that does sound so good. Right.
Yet the sense of progress, the ideals of liberty, many Europeans imagined characterized the era, were far from universal. These Enlightenment ideas were produced and benefited white, with a capital W, men. Of course, no women benefited
Capital
from...
M or only a capital W for white?
Capital
Capital
W.
Lowercase for men, put them in their place.
Yeah, from the middle and upper classes. So there you see the kind of ideology that is now behind even our cultural, artistic institutions. I mean, it's just sort of gone everywhere.
Right, I'm guessing Glenda's going to give me a pretty bleak view of the year as a whole. But Sam, let me come back to you. I'm not going to ask you for your optimism, or rather your audit number yet. It's not usually an optimism rating here on Live with Littlewood, but we're doing an audit, of course, as you've known, if you've been watching us throughout the show. How much madder has the United Kingdom got over the course of 2021?
I think quite a lot. And the thing that I think is the most mad is how, and this has been happening for 2 years now, is how much the constant lockdowns, restrictions, etc., have become part of the culture almost, the national, the brain, the mind of the country. And I just think that we are not, it's going to take a long time to undo some of the restrictions that we've had. So I think we're a lot madder. If I have to give a number, I don't know if I need to give a number, but...
I only ask our guests to give one number throughout the programme. Give me a kind of... Do it on the rainbow spectrum.
Oh.
Red is getting unbelievably madder. Mm-hmm. Violet is sort of getting a bit saner.
Wow, that's... I'm trying to think of my
Roy G.
rainbow.
Beer, red, orange, yellow. Yeah.
Pink and green.
We do top science here on the IEA YouTube channel. We always follow the science.
I think in that case, I am probably an orange.
Orange, that's quite a lot madder. Do you think the world's getting madder, or have we been in this state of madness for some time, Mark?
I think we've been in this state of madness. I'm not certain it's particularly getting worse. But what I'm encouraged by, and I want to end on, a high note, is that there is now pushback, and I think the Popular Front, for at least political, if not economic liberty, is now gaining big momentum. So as Lenin said, worse is better, actually, in some respects.
I don't know, Lenin said something very similar to the first Director General of the IEA, Ralph Harris, when he was asked in the 1970s, and what's the point of the IEA? The unions control everything, everything's nationalised, the country's going to the dogs. He said, cheer up, things can only get worse. And he meant that actually there would be an inflection point. But that's interesting, Mark, on that. What are the signs, would you say, because you deal with loads of people right across the political spectrum who are worried about political liberty. You say the sort of a fight back to actually reassert these Enlightenment values is happening. What are the sort of metrics of that? Again, do it through the colours of the rainbow, because we can only have one number. I mean, is it growing at red levels? That would be very fast. Or
no, maybe not red levels, but maybe a kind of tangerine orangey colour.
Okay.
So, for example, we saw Cambridge University. There was an attempt by the Vice-Chancellor to introduce a policy in relation to speakers that would have resulted in the university then having, even wider scope to ban people. And Professor Arif Ahmed organised a coalition of academics to fight back against this, and they defeated it. And that, that was a huge sort of moment where we're seeing, Labour politicians getting on board with the free speech, in the Free Speech Popular Front, Debbie Abrahams, Graham Stringer, Stephen Timms. So right across the political spectrum, I think a coalition for political liberty is beginning to take shape.
Oh, quite an optimistic note then. So you're the final two people to have their say, and then by magic, the people, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain will put all the numbers together. I'll give my number as well. I've waited until December. and to remind you and our viewers the number you've got to give. How good or bad was 2021 overall, right? So sometimes I ask people how optimistic they're feeling about the future. No, I'm not asking you that. Look back at the past, right the way back to 1st of January 2021, when we left the European Union. Just to remind people, if you weren't watching it right at the top of the show, what's your audit of 2021? Naught, terrible, 10 things couldn't have gone better. Sam?
I mean, should I give this answer an interpretive dance, or will just the number be?
Well, I don't know, that would be quite a woke way of giving the answer, so I guess you can if you want. A simple, straightforward number will do, but, you know, I'll probably be culturally oppressing you if I actually ask for a specific number.
I would say it is a 6.5.
No, you've completely forgotten the rule. It is not 6.5, it has to be an integer.
Integer, right, okay. Sorry, then in that case, I will give it a 6.
Okay.
Mid-table mediocrity.
Mid-table mediocrity, the sort of thing that Southampton Football Club strive for and will be striving for into 2022. The 6, why a 6?
It hasn't been universally bad. To be honest, it's difficult to say so at this point in the year, but I was impressed by how well the government pushed back against some of the efforts to bring in more COVID restrictions sooner. There has been pushback that Marce talked about.
It's not ending very well.
It's not ending well, but you said it had to be across the whole year, and I'm trying to be generous. Trying. And so the government has done its best, I think, to push back against some of the earlier efforts for more restrictions. There has been a pushback against some of the worst excesses of wokedom, but frankly, as a society, there's a lot to do, and as a government, there's a lot to do.
Mark, where are you on this spectrum, 0 to 10? Your maths are up to this, aren't they?
Oh, yeah,
0 to 10, it needs to be an integer.
As well, you know. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Sam do some dancing. Can you tell him to do some dancing?
We'll do the Sam dancing for another special
that might be a more
edition.
private moment between us. I might go kind of reverse Spinal Tap and say 0.1. I don't actually mean that, but I just wanted to say that.
No, this just screwed up all the maths.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it's mixed and messy. So let me alight on 5.
5, mixed and messy. I think, which, you know, if we do all of the numbers and come up together, I'll give you mine at the moment. What am I going to go for? What do you think I should go for? Usually I'm optimistic, but my optimism has been found somewhat wanting. But I think things could have gone worse. And I was expecting 2021, I guess, to be the year of freedom. It hasn't been. I'm going to have to give a 4 out of 10, which, as it happens, pretty much reflects the performance of Southampton Football Club over 2021 as well. So maybe that's subconsciously why I've picked 4 out of 10. So we'll add all of those numbers together. I think there's 24 of them. We'll pull up on the screen now what the absolute average is. And you know what? I think although we've had some very low numbers, as you, Chris Snowden, we've had some very high numbers.
Yeah,
he's a Yorkshireman. Yeah, you should probably treble whatever number he gives you to get the accurate one. But we'll put up on the screen now what the absolute average was. And I think you'll find it's sort of pretty middle-ish, even though some people have had high numbers and some low. But look, we finished on a very mediocre note. Not because of my brilliant guests, but just because 4, 5 and 6, even my maths between the three of us, we've averaged a 5. Last Christmas cracker. We've gone through 12, one for each day of Christmas.
Sam, you know you
Merry
want to.
Christmas.
You go for it.
A win. Finish with a win just before Christmas.
Just like Southampton.
So, we'll see about that one.
How many games have they won this season?
Very few. This is, you know, all of the Christmas cracker jokes are IEA Economics Christmas cracker jokes, but even cornier than most Christmas cracker jokes. What's black and white and red all over?
What, Mark? What is black and white and red all over?
Well, can you guess?
Economic affairs?
No, not too bad. The government spending projections. That's the one that we're leaving you with. Black and white and red all over. That's our final month wrapped up. Mark, Sam, have a very, very Merry Christmas. And here's to better times, much better times, even better times in 2022. Thank you very much indeed. Woo! Well, thanks very much for joining us for that marathon of a show. A full look back on 2021. Let us know in the comments below how you'd rate 2021 out of 10. Was it a 0, a 5 or a 10? Share your views with us in the comments below. Most importantly of all, have a very, very Merry Christmas. Drink, eat, be merry, and join us again in January. In the meantime, make sure you've hit the like, thumbs up, subscribe, the notification bell, and we'll see you all on the other side next year. Stay safe, stay free, over and out. Well, if you enjoyed that conversation, why not watch one of these other videos? And while you're here, remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss out on a single IEA broadcast.